This is News 8 This Morning.
Good morning, everyone. 6 a.m. now on a Monday. Hope you had a really nice weekend. The temperatures were nice and mild, Stella.
Oh, yeah. Yes, they were. But it looks like we are warming up, as Heather just said. We'll get to that in just a moment. In the meantime, though, let's get right into your headlines. Police funding is at the center of a debate over how the city of San Diego will spend its money next year, and a major vote is expected later this morning.
News 8's Chris Groh is live now with a closer look at the city's budget plan. A lot of eyes are going to be on this budget this year. Chris.
Good morning, Eric and Stella. Yes, a lot of eyes will be on this budget, specifically when it comes to how much more money the police department here in San Diego will get. Obviously, we've heard a lot of calls across the nation to defund the police or to decrease the amount that cities spend on them, and we're hearing those calls here in San Diego. So let's break down the numbers about what's on the table and what we've seen in the past. So right now on the table, we're looking at a $27 million increase from last fiscal year. So that means we would likely see the budget, if approved, for the police department go from $539 million for this fiscal year to $566 million next fiscal year. Now, local activists are urging San Diego City Council members to reconsider and reject this version of the mayor's budget and to allocate that money to other areas, to other social services, affordable housing, and other areas that would need that money. But the mayor says that those funds are pre-approved raises and expenditures, plus that this is much needed in order to keep San Diegans safe. So this will be considered later on today. Now, what's also interesting about this budget proposal as it exists right now is that it doesn't have a lot of those budget cuts that we saw proposed back in April. If you remember, back in that first draft, it included a number of cuts to libraries, rec center jobs, and the elimination of about 354 city jobs. Now, a number of those cuts have been basically taken away from this version, and some of those jobs have been restored due to some state and federal COVID funding that was introduced into this newest version of the bill. So this will all be considered later on today at 11 a.m. That's when the City Council will have a chance to review this version of the budget and then have a chance to vote on it as well. Back to you.
Chris Groh, thanks for that. And in the next half hour, we will explain what it would look like to defund the police. That's ahead in our Connect the Dots segment. Meanwhile, curfews are no longer in effect in La Mesa and Santee right now. Santee just lifted its curfew. La Mesa ended its curfew at 5:30 this morning. Communities across San Diego have continued to call for justice for George Floyd and action against police brutality. A peaceful protest wrapped up late last night in Hillcrest. Earlier in the day, a march in Santee headed north after protesting outside the sheriff's station. Chula Vista had one of the biggest turnouts with just over 1,000 people. It started at Community Park and marched through Eastlake. Pacific Beach held a family-friendly, peaceful protest as they made their way to the beach.
And more than 3,000 protesters flooded the streets of downtown San Diego Saturday, marching to Hillcrest. At Civic Center Park in Vista, organizers 100 Mothers March for Criminal Justice Reform gathered there as well. Here is what one mom had to say who took to the microphone. Listen.
There will be no more killing of our children in the streets. There will be no more.
No more.
And in Oceanside Saturday, protesters marched down Mission Avenue. Overall, protests across the board remained peaceful.
Protests in George Floyd's honor have not only sparked here, but around the world. It's been 2 weeks since Floyd died in police custody.
And one of the 4 officers accused of being responsible for his death is expected in court today. This comes as the final memorial service will be held for Floyd in the city where he grew up, Houston, Texas. Natalie Brand has the very latest.
These girls help put American flags along the route where George Floyd's body will be carried to today's memorial service.
It represents all of America.
Inside Houston's Fountain of Praise Church, final preparations are underway. Over the weekend, demonstrators flooded the streets around the country, demanding police accountability and an end to racial injustice.
We really need to work together, start conversations on how to break down systems of oppression.
Here in Washington, D.C., the mayor renamed this area about a block from the White House Black Lives Matter Plaza. Sunday, a civil rights icon came to view it.
Congressman John Lewis, who led the Bloody Sunday March in Alabama in 1965, called the protest moving.
People in D.C. and around the nation are sending a mighty, powerful, and strong message.
Some protesters added the words "defund the police" to the street as lawmakers begin discussions about reform.
I don't believe that you should disband police departments, but I do think that in cities, in states, we need to look at how we are spending the resources.
In Minneapolis, a majority of the city council vowed to dismantle the department, saying they'll create a new model.
To end policing as we know it.
Former police officer Derek Chauvin is expected to make his first court appearance today on second-degree murder charges. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
And on that dismantling of the police department idea, Minneapolis City Council President says, quote, "Our commitment is to end our city's toxic relationship with the police department, to end policing as we know it," end quote. Part of the vision for that included redirecting the police department's budget toward youth programs, mental health services, and addiction treatment.
Time now for the morning rush. The National Guard is now out of San Diego. The Sheriff's Department shared a message on Twitter saying, quote, "We want to thank them for supporting SD Sheriff and our partner law enforcement agencies to ensure the protection of life and property while balancing people's right to assemble peacefully." More than 7,000 soldiers and airmen mobilized a week ago at the order of Governor Newsom as protests intensified across the state. A small, quick reaction force will be stationed in various parts of California to assist law enforcement if requested. And we could see more businesses reopen possibly as early as Friday. So this morning, County Supervisor Jim Desmond plans to tour the Fit Athletic Club and Gym in Mission Beach. Desmond says the gym has put measures in place to reopen safely. The state issued guidelines for reopening gyms as well as bars, hotels, day camps, and family entertainment centers. The county would need to give the green light first. An arrest has now been made in a hit-and-run crash that killed a 17-year-old girl near Escondido. It came after a tip from someone who saw the description of the suspect's vehicle broadcast by news media. CHP located the damaged Toyota SUV yesterday in North County. The alleged driver, a 29-year-old man, was arrested, taken into custody on suspicion of felony hit-and-run. CHP says additional charges may be filed.
San Diego City Council President is demanding answers after a controversial arrest has gone viral. Take a look here. This video now viewed over 1.4 million times. It was taken Thursday night on Park Boulevard. Police claimed a woman stepped off the sidewalk and swung a protest sign at a passing motorcycle officer. A bystander filmed her being swarmed and arrested by armed, plainclothes detectives, then taken away in an unmarked van. Witnesses say one officer was heard threatening to shoot protesters if they followed them. Council President Georgette Gomez has responded saying, quote, "I am calling for an immediate and thorough investigation into this incident and for the officer who threatened to kill unarmed protesters to be placed on leave. It is incredibly disturbing to hear police officers threaten people's lives." Police Chief David Nislight says an internal investigation is underway.
Today, New York City, once the epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic, begins its phase 1 reopening, and as many as 400,000 people could head back to work. New York's case numbers have steadily declined over the last several weeks. New York State was hit hard in the coronavirus pandemic, losing more than 30,000 residents. We will have more on this coming up in the next half hour. And here in San Diego, coronavirus testing continues to ramp up. Officials announcing more than 5,700 new tests. Of those tests reported, there were 131 new cases, about 2% of those given. That brings the total number of county cases to 8,476. The death toll in the county remains at 296 people, with no new deaths reported as of Saturday.
The city of San Diego is continuing its reopening process. Today, East and West Mission Bay parks will reopen with all parking lots available. Fiesta Island will reopen as well, but only to pedestrians and cyclists. Tomorrow, all San Diego City piers and boardwalks will open back up. And on Friday, Balboa Park's Central Mesa will reopen. Parking lots there will also reopen to full capacity. And Boomers in Kearny Mesa just announced it is closing for good. That is what was posted on the business's Facebook page earlier this morning. There are now only 5 Boomers parks left in the country, 1 in Irvine, 3 in Northern California, and the other in Boca Raton, Florida. Just too bad. When we have another business that's been here for a long time shutting down, sadly, we probably will see more of that happening. We have also, though, seen some new businesses popping up, and you know, in this new era of business in San Diego, there's a lot of challenges that are going along with it.
It's been very hard for some businesses to be able to weather this pandemic, and you know, we hope to see more businesses stay in business as we open up, and you know, a lot of them have been forced to pivot in the way that they operate, of course.
And we all can help out in that by shopping and buying local, right? Still ahead here, a former San Diego Charger dead after a shooting in Florida. We're going to have an update on what happened here. And the first tropical storm of the 2020 season has arrived. We have the latest on where it's headed next. And you've probably heard a lot about some extremist groups being blamed for turning peaceful protests violent. But is there any truth to these claims? We're going to verify that for you next.